In an encampment, the cook is waking everyone up with the banging of his pan, which makes most of the soldiers rise from their beds, including one Encrid, who has been causing a lot of trouble for everyone, so he was demoted to squad leader for a bunch of dumbasses. Shortly after, an attack begins, and even if Encrid does not have any special abilities, he got here with his endless training, and this is why now he is able to put up a fight on the battlefield. Even if he can down 1 or 2 men, eventually he is put to the ground, as he holds no talents, and he knows that his dream is out of his reach for someone so untalented. Tons of people die around him as he tries to grab his sword, which makes him recoil. He thought that even if everyone around him mocked him for trying to achieve his dream, as long as he had his blade, he could manage somehow. Now though, the dream of becoming a knight is removed from his mind, as he can only think about his imminent death. Even this was pathetic. So that means the people who were praying for his downfall got their wish. As his mind drifts to the abyss, he sees a blue flame standing in front of him, and in a few moments he awakes again, in the same bed that he did today. He thinks that this was a dream, but when the soldier next to him says the exact same thing he did in the dream, he wonders if it truly was just that, and a sense of déjà vu envelops him. He has no choice but to go back to the battlefield, where the same fate meets him again and again. The 4th time this happens, he starts questioning everything, as he can still feel the enemy's piercing sword in his neck. It felt hot, and the pain was unimaginable. He observes the battle closely, and comes to the realization that this day keeps on repeating. But now he knows what will happen to him, and he refuses to give up. The enemy comes at him with a perfect stab, in positioning and everything. This is the 17th time he sees his own death coming straight for him, and he cannot do anything about it like he hoped before. If only he trained in the sword better, put more effort into it, and worked a little bit harder. Perhaps he wouldn't have to suffer and die like this if he did. As he lays in the world between life and death, the blue flame appears again, this time captured in a lamp, and someone on a boat asks if he really thinks that. He should just try to struggle and feel it properly, and then he should give up. He should fully feel the despair of an immovable object in front of him. Encrid becomes enraged as he hears this, and determination fills his eyes. He is already awake when the cook wakes them up, and he immediately tells the guy next to him, Rem, that he has a bug in his boots. When he looks, he actually finds it, and after crushing it, he asks if he put it in as a sort of prank or something. Encrid explains that he saw it crawl in his boot earlier. This is his 18th time seeing that bug, making him wonder, how many more times will he see it before this nightmare ends? Since he was young, he chose to wield the sword and learned swordsmanship from a returned mercenary that came to his village. The first spark of his dream came from him, as he congratulated him for being so good, to the point where he fully believed that he could become a knight. That's when Encrid began to dream. Someone like him, a true knight. The knights are people who can slay thousands on their own and change the flow of battle in an instant. They are incredible heroes that everyone respects. Like any child, he thought that he could become the knight who can finish a war, the Knight of the End, which was the protagonist of a song he heard from a wandering minstrel. That is when he decided that he wanted to be the main character too, and leave the village in order to become a knight. However, people started to laugh at him as soon as he left the village to pursue his dream, as he joined a mercenary corps, and they were all making fun of how he ran away from a stray dog because it scared him. This way, he learned that his talent is really nothing special, but it was too early for him to give up, so he trained constantly, as hard work is something that never betrays you. Even if he had no talent, Encrid believed that with time and lots of effort, even in the most harsh places, he could overcome every limit he had, and thus, he gained a lot of experience. He also gained the strength and endurance to be acknowledged by people around him. That is when hope returned to him, and it returned in full swing. Unfortunately for him, that strong hope was shattered in a moment by a child. There was a 12-year-old boy who requested a duel. He was from the village he was currently resting in. Even with his age and the fact that he started learning how to wield the sword only 6 months ago, he defeated the idiot who spent almost his entire life learning the sword, to the point where his calluses developed calluses. Despair started to befall him. Was his work all in vain? Is there really no way out of being untalented? Encrid truly wanted to be a knight, and even if everyone laughed at him for it, saying that it was a hopeless venture, he refused to give up. He spent a lot less time eating and sleeping and started to swing and swing until the sun started to rise and he was completely out of stamina. Even if he hit the tree with tons of attacks, all he could get out of it was a couple of cuts. That's when he thought that even if he could not become his dream, he could at least become an experienced soldier. He screamed out at the unfairness of the world and continued to swing, as this was all he could do. 3 years later, in the present, he is in the Cyprus division, with the 4 companies, the 4 platoons, and below that, the 4 squads. Encrid became the squad commander of a second-rate squad, the best position he could achieve after his manic training. Still, it's much better than being a mercenary, as he is a soldier of the kingdom after all. Ankrid walks up to one of his squad members named Jackson and tells him to do his morning duty for him, as he has to do something. Jackson looks at him for a bit and says that he will have to repay him next time. Rem can't believe that he dared to look at someone of a higher position than him in that way. That guy is going to lose his head one day. Ankrid doesn't care about that, as he wants to learn the heart of the beast again. Rem is quite surprised by this, but asks why he wants to do it again. He thought that he gave up on trying to learn it. Shortly after this, the Nolilia versus Aspen close combat battle began once again, and he died like before. Ankrid was tired of reliving the same day over and over, but he used this time to learn the heart of the beast from Rem each time he came back. Even so, he still cannot see the tip of the sword that kills him, and he hopes that today will be the last day where he has to go through this. As the soldiers scream out and engage in fighting, Ankrid notes that this is the 21st time on this same battlefield, and by now, he has completely memorized the situation. First, he dodges the spear that comes from behind. Next, there is a guy who will attack him from behind, and after that, a squad member by the name of Vel will die. However, this time, Ankrid protects him from the arrow and from the rampaging soldier that is coming to kill him. His plan finally worked. As before, even if he blocked the arrow, he would still die. Today is the first time he has survived. What is left now is to kill the bastard who will stab him in the neck and whom he meets even if he tries desperately not to. This bastard has stabbed him in the same spot 20 times, but this time it will be different. He will see his blade. He will survive. Rem told him that since he always closes his eyes when something dangerous comes his way, he is left vulnerable, and to prove his point, he aimed an axe at his neck. He told him that he needed to be brave and not easily agitated. He has to become a bastard who does not know about death, like a beast who is fighting with everything it has for survival. That is the heart of the beast. Ankrid wonders if he is afraid of death, but he has felt it too many times for that to be true. Death is his friend, as it makes him stronger. For the first time, he manages to dodge his impending doom, and his heart starts to beat out of his chest. He is extremely happy with this, and tries to retaliate, but the expert swordsman in front of him uses a skillful technique and stabs him in the neck once again, ending his life. The boatman greets him again, and says that on this day, he will only feel pain and despair, so he should give up and get on the boat. He should acknowledge himself as weak and be at ease in the afterlife. Unfortunately for him, the boatman has picked the wrong person to challenge, as Ankrid refuses to go with him, and gives up as he finally sees the tip of the sword he thought impossible to see. Even if it takes him 100 days, he will get out of this loop. Eventually, Ankrid arrives at the 33rd time he is on the battlefield, and now he can clearly see the first attack that ended his life so many times. But even if he manages to dodge it, he cannot dodge the next one, as his enemy is way too fast, so he falls to the ground, and another death is counted. In his time as a mercenary, he took up a few quests for monster subjugation. It's not like he really wanted to, but he just came to a random village where he was asked to help. The reason he decided to help them was because of his dream, as protecting the weak is what a knight does after all. His reward for doing all of that work was a charm, something extremely cheap for how much he risked his life. But the village elder told him that this would grant what he was desperately wishing for. So Ankrid wonders now if this is why this day keeps on repeating, just so that he can become a knight. He isn't dead yet, and tries to get up, but the soldier notices and says that he will show him some mercy, since he must be in a lot of pain. Ankrid knows that this is just a facade, as this bastard is just a monster who enjoys stabbing people. He wakes up in his bed once again and tells Rem that he put a bug in his boot, which he is very mad about, as he didn't expect a squad leader to be so annoying. Ankrid tells him to stop talking and come outside, as he wants to learn the heart of the beast again. When they go and do that, Ankrid is able to accurately dodge Rem's incoming attacks, which surprised him, as he didn't expect the skin of his heart to get so thick. Ankrid says that he just trained, but Rem notes that this technique takes time to learn. There is no way that his family technique could be taught to someone else so easily, but he does not know that Ankrid has gone through hell and back with it, and the sensation of impending death he felt each time made him much more proficient in it. He tells him that he probably got it by chance, but he wants to spar now, which Rem is pleasantly surprised by and accepts. Even if he masters the heart of the beast, he will just get killed because he cannot land a single strike against that bastard. He continues to dodge Rem's incoming attacks because he doesn't possess any good attack techniques. He only knows one, which is the Valen mercenary sword technique. It's quite anomalous, and it was made by someone named Valen. As the name implies, it's a technique that some speak ill of, and others call it a petty trick. Even so, he has something else he wishes to try. He tries to imitate the stab of his murderer, and he does so pretty well, but Rem can easily throw his sword away with sheer force. Still, for a moment he imitated that stab perfectly. Since he died to it more than a few times, his body remembers it well. Rem says that among what he showed him in this spar, that stab was the most decent, but he should put more impact into it. He tries to explain it the best he can, but he isn't really that smart. So he just says that he shouldn't doubt his attack and put everything into it, to the point where he can already see the enemy in front of him dead. That way, he shouldn't lose grip on his sword. Encrid thinks that this was a horrid explanation, but he got it. The difference between his stab and that bastard is that he is not confident in his blade. He must do like he does every time he kills him, stab with the intent to kill the person in front of him. He tries to do it again but fails, resulting in his death. Even if he has to do it a step at a time or even a quarter of a step, he will advance no matter what. The days continue to pass as he trains and dies. The 11th day, the 123rd day, but finally, on the 124th day, he lets out a strike that Rem has no choice but to dodge, which he calls him crazy for, as he puts so much force into that attack that blood is coming out, and his smile really isn't helping his image. But Encrid couldn't care less, as he has finally mastered that bastard stab technique. The first time he tried this technique, he managed to graze the soldier's head, but even if he failed and was stabbed again, he did not blink and didn't even let go of his sword. The soldier said his usual line, that this is mercy, but Encrid promised him that tomorrow he was going to die. This made the soldier smile, as the dead have no tomorrow, but he does not know. This time Encrid crushes the bug before it goes into Rem's boot and tells him to take his guard duty, making Rem wonder when he became so pushy. This marks the 125th day of the loop. He tells someone called Big Eyes to get him some shin armor, a shield, and a dagger, as he will pay for them later. Big Eyes reluctantly accepts, but he tells him that he is doing it only because he trusts him. Rem comes from behind and notes that the squad commander is becoming a little pushy, but Jackson says that they always push their tasks to him, so this is just revenge from his side. Rem doesn't know what to say, but he's acting weird, like he is extremely tense. As Encrid trains, he thinks that every time he dies, he feels a lot of pain, and his mind starts to wander. What if he never wins, even after tens of thousands of tries? What if he can find another way to escape and survive? Would he wake up the next day or still end up in this loop? He is much stronger than before. Isn't that worth something? Shouldn't he be content with what he has? But he steels himself once again. Giving up was never an option. He has to surpass the wall put in front of him no matter what. By learning how to stab efficiently, he proves that he won't abandon the blessing that he was given. With his mind more made up than ever before, he equips all of the equipment he needs and thinks about only moving forward. He and his squad join the ongoing battle, which Encrid is prepared for. He is a person with no skills, but he managed to survive all of this because of three things: preparation, luck, and maintaining a cool head. On the 46th day, his left shoulder was completely shattered by a spiked mace, and on the 47th day, he rolled to dodge the mace, but someone crushed his head instead. With this information, he is able to kill the mace guy with a single slash. But on the 71st day, when he first did this, a soldier cut his foot off, so he couldn't do anything to the stabbing soldier. This is why he got the shin armor, and is now easily able to take that soldier out. On the 89th day, his head was split completely open because somebody threw an axe at his head. If he lets him live now, he will interrupt his main fight. So he trained in throwing weapons throughout the day, meaning that it's not difficult for him to counterattack. After all of that, Vel always ends up behind him, and a sharpshooter called the Claw of the Hawk, which he doesn't have the time to take out, but he can protect Vel. And after this comes the wall, which he meets with determination. The stabbing soldier goes for his shield first, which he breaks, letting Encrid dash away. As dodging and stabbing won't give him any chances of winning, strategies like this serve him much better. This guy is just a regular soldier, but he is strong, at the level of a prodigy almost. But there is one thing he lacks: real fighting experience. Encrid uses this to his advantage and headbutts him before using the Valen mercenary technique. He gathers some dirt in front of his boot and throws it in the eyes of the stabber, allowing him to finally have the upper hand. But the stabber becomes mad at this provocation and goes for Encrid's neck, who knows that he had to dodge and does so expertly. This makes the both of them stand behind each other, and as the stabber goes for another attack, Encrid now knows everything about that stab, so he hits his sword in such a way that it completely shatters. At the same time, the Claw of the Hawk aims and shoots another arrow. Encrid now has the complete advantage and prepares to stab the bastard with his own technique, but that arrow moves straight for him. That's when one of Rem's axes flies through the air and breaks it, just in time for Encrid to finish his revenge. Rem wishes to go for that bastard, but he doesn't have enough time. As the battle rages on, Encrid enjoys his victory, and as the stabber crouches down while bleeding out, Encrid raises his sword in the air, as this is mercy. With that, he cuts his head off, and finally breaks through the wall that was put in front of him. Suddenly, he is attacked by a strange being and sent flying, which the others identify as a frog. The frog person notes that he spent quite a bit to raise this one, but to think that he would be defeated by a weakling, well, it doesn't really matter, as he will die now. Before he can strike Encrid one last time, Rem comes in clutch and starts fighting the frog person with everything he has, both of them emanating the spirit of a warrior. At the same time, one random soldier tries to kill the incapacitated Encrid, but Jackson quickly decapitates him. Rem and the frog person back away from each other, and Rem says that if he wishes to kill the squad commander, he has to go through him first. The frog person is surprised that he isn't the commander, and Rem thinks that the frog people are a warrior race, born to be on the battlefield. He is either going to have to burn him with magic or pierce his heart. The frog person doesn't understand why someone like the man in front of him is on this battlefield. To kill him, he will have to put his life on the line, which he doesn't think is worth it, so he just backs away. As Jackson escorts Encrid out, the others help him along the way by killing any attackers, and they eventually get the order to retreat, which Encrid hears, meaning that finally, he has survived this day. He goes back to the land between the living and the dead, with the boatman telling him that he managed to survive, but this is all he can do because he will not be able to go through the walls that will keep appearing in front of him. His fate is filled with despair, so he should just give up now. Encrid slowly gets up and says that for him, walls do not exist to stop him. They exist to be overcome. The boatman likes his attitude, and so he will wait for the moment when those eyes filled with hope will completely lose their light. With that, Encrid awakens in the infirmary tent, and Rem, who is beside him, says that he has been sleeping for 2 days. He was actually the one who saved him from that frog bastard, so he better be thankful. Encrid didn't know that he was hit by a frog. It's amazing that he managed to live. Rem explains that his bones are not broken, but his head was shaken up pretty badly, so he does remember that they are best friends, right? Encrid notes that he never said they are friends, calling him a noble hunter, which makes Rem shut him up, as he can't just blurt out people's secrets without a thought like that when he has nothing to do with it. Anyway, Encrid is glad that he was able to get out of that loop alive after so many days. Later, Big Eyes, real name Crace, comes to the infirmary, as he wants payment threefold, as he also paid for getting him in here. Encrid wondered why he was in the infirmary when soldiers like him would be left to tend to themselves. To lower the price, Encrid asks where he was when the battle started, as he didn't see him anywhere. Crace says that he will give him a special discount if he shuts up, which he accepts. Much later, Jackson comes around and hands him some medicine that he will apply twice a day, in the morning and evening, but he shouldn't ask how he got it. Encrid notices that this is the ointment he always uses, which is surprising since Jackson doesn't share his personal items at all. Around the same time, Auden also comes and starts praying for him, but Encrid says that he's not dead, so he can leave. As night falls, Encrid wonders why they are all taking shifts looking after him, as they are probably busy, as they usually are. Perhaps they are worried about him. That's when Ragna comes around, and is surprised to see him in the infirmary before leaving. Encrid notes that Ragna is exempt from this, as that guy wouldn't care if the world ended tomorrow. Besides him, there are 2 other soldiers in the infirmary, a platoon commander from another company who he used to pick fights with, and one soldier that he doesn't know the name of who is always staring at a wall. As he thinks about him, a person with long ears and royal armor comes around, asking for the commander of the 444th Squad, which is Encrid. The platoon commander notices that she is a fairy, and she asks which group he is with as a result. He explains that he's Vengeance, the commander of the 3rd platoon in the 2nd company. She then asks if his company taught him to state his race when he meets a superior, which he apologizes for. Encrid thinks that this must be the new commander of the 4th company, and he also introduces himself as a result. She has heard that he is leading his difficult squad quite well, so she looks forward to his future contributions. With that, she just walks away, confusing Encrid, but she suddenly stops and asks the young soldier who is in the infirmary what his name is. It takes him a while to say it, as he comes up with the name of Krang, but even Encrid notices that he just made it up. His attitude in front of a superior is bad too. Is he a noble of some sort? The woman just looks at him and leaves. Late at night, Encrid feels almost no pain, and he can put some strength into his body, meaning that he should resume training. Vengeance asks where he is going, and when he reveals that he is going to the training area, Vengeance calls him an idiot, as he shouldn't act tough when he is the lowest ranking soldier there is. Encrid eventually finds a quiet spot and recalls the past battle, as it was one of the few useful methods he spent tons of cash on in order to learn. First, he thinks about what would have happened if his attack had failed. Perhaps it's not a good idea to put all of his strength into one attack, but if that attack fails, he dies anyway. If Rem's attacks were lethal, after he stabbed his sword with all of his might, what would be the next move? Suddenly, someone interrupts his meditation and notes that he's working hard, that someone is Krang, who doesn't know what he's doing, but his hands kept twitching in the infirmary, and now he's just spacing out here? Encrid explains that he was doing the first thing to test his grip, and now he's replicating the battle. Crank asks why he's doing that, and Encrid puts it quite well, so that he doesn't get butchered on the battlefield. Krang then asks if he wants to become something by preserving his life like this. Encred knows that what he wishes to become is his dream, but when he tells it to other people, they just laugh at him, a dream that he has always pursued. However, this dream is something that he will never stop pursuing, so he is proud to say that he wants to become a knight. Krang is quite surprised by this, and Encred notes that this is the first time he sees someone not laughing at him for saying that. Krang says that he just forgot, but he suddenly remembered what he needed to do after watching him. If he becomes a knight though, he should at least remember his name. Encred thinks that this is new, as he was never supported up until now. A wandering minstrel arrives at the camp and starts singing songs about legendary heroes, while Vengeance wants his morning rations to come already. Because of all of this, Encred decides to take a walk, where he meets with Jackson, who asks how his injuries are doing. He says that because of the medicine he has been doing well. He's quite thankful for it. Jackson tells him to come back already if he's thankful. Later that night, Krang wishes him a good night, and he does the same, making Vengeance say that they should just marry each other if they are so close. As he drifts off to sleep, Encred thinks that this was a day with nothing important in it. When he wakes up, the minstrel is still singing about Cyprus, and Vengeance is once again complaining about the food, just like yesterday. That's when Encred gets it, and as he walks outside in the same spot, Jackson once again asks how his injuries are. When Encred responds the same way, and Jackson answers the same way, his suspicions are confirmed, and a vision of the boatman comes to mind. While he was sleeping, he died without even noticing. He died like a dog, without even knowing it. But now he's even more determined to overcome this challenge. As night falls, Encred wonders who killed him and why, as the enemy isn't able to go through their defenses so easily, meaning that an assassin did, someone who is probably among them. They know his location and how to conceal their presence. His mind jumps to the fairy, as they are a race that is known for being quiet and nimble. Is this why she came here that day? He must confirm it, as he can't throw out baseless accusations. He just needs to wait. That's when a poison needle stabs him in the neck from above, and he only manages to fall down as the numbness of the poison takes him. He notices that Vengeance is also poisoned, but Krang is stabbed by the assassin, and another assassin comes into the tent as the job is finished, that assassin being none other than the company leader. Encred thinks that even if he was alert, he couldn't feel them. This will be hard to counter, plus he will have to face the company commander after he is done killing the commander. It's a truly hopeless situation. He didn't expect for this feeling to return so quickly. But despite all of the trials put in front of him, he came out on top, and so he will definitely find a way to get out. He pulls the sheets above Vengeance, and prepares to strike because he assumed that the assassins would have infiltrated by now, but it seems that he needs to be wary of the outside. Vengeance wonders what he's doing, but notes that he must be hunting cockroaches, a fitting thing for him. Encred didn't expect for him to care so much, which gets Vengeance mad, and at the same time, Krang comes inside, wondering if he should come back later and let them bicker. Encred tells him to come in and looks at him while he makes his bed. Considering the assassins took him out in another way, he must be their target. But why? Just who is he? He thinks of not digging into it like his teammates usually do with most things. But since he is involved, he has the right to. He asks what he is, which Krang doesn't know how to respond to, but eventually says that it's not something he can say because it's a long story. Encred just accepts it for what it is. But Vengeance can't believe that he just took that, as he has a feeling that this guy is not from this country, meaning that he must be a spy from another country. That has to be it. Krang gets closer to him and says that he has not and will never betray the kingdom. As he said that, Encred felt something in his eyes, the will and aura of a knight, but he is not one, as he is powerless against the assassins. Though now he has confirmed that he is hiding something that he doesn't want to tell. As night falls and they wish each other good night, Vengeance falls silent, perhaps because he is scared of Krang now. The assassins are also about to barge in soon, so he gets up and tells the others that some assassins are going to invade this tent. They better come with him if he wants to leave. The others think that he is crazy, but that's when someone asks how he noticed, and he is hit at a vital point before he can even try anything. The assassin kills all of them in seconds, and Encred wakes up to the minstrel singing again. Since he has no way of letting the others know that the assassin is coming, he can't get them on board. At first he tries to get help from a commander, who tells him to screw off, so he tries to predict the assassin's movements, but he is killed in an instant. Next, he tries to ambush the ambusher, but he is killed without even knowing where the assassin was, as he cannot see him. Though they can see his every move, as long as he cannot avoid that poison blade, he will die without being able to do a single thing. The 20th morning arrives, and Encred falls into the pits of despair but crawls right back out, as he has only died 20 times. He needs to think of how to get rid of the needle first, and a way to avoid fast attacks, so he goes to Jackson for it. While they were training, he asked Rem why he was calling Jackson a wildcat. He explained that he only attacks when he's behind someone and then runs off, which reminded him of a cat. Encred assumes that he would win against the assassins, and he can't just take him in since he has no authority to do so, but even if he could, he must pass this wall alone, so he will learn from the best. He asks Jackson, if someone were to stab him in the back, what could he do in order to stop it? Jackson thinks about it and is not sure, as nobody has ever survived his ambushes, something that Encred takes note of. Jackson notices Encred's desperate stare and relents, telling him that he always needs to have eyes in the back of his head. Encred asks what that means, and Jackson explains that it's basically perfect timing. For example, the wagon behind the tents that's just passing by now. Encred is shocked to find that there's actually a wagon behind him. But how did he know? Does he really have eyes in the back of his head? Jackson also says that the wagon is going to come apart, and only seconds later, that happens. Encred asks if he's some type of prophet with a hidden talent, but Jackson notes that he just must have spent too much time with Rem to think that. Jackson tells him that he simply followed sound, as he heard the axle of the wagon creak from here. If he can efficiently hear what's around him, he can basically predict what's going to happen next. Encred is more surprised that he heard something so quiet, as he didn't even hear the wagon in the first place. Jackson leaves him with one final piece of advice. He should keep trying to listen to what's around him and hone his senses to help him isolate sounds better. Encred notes that this was a pretty good explanation, too good for someone as lazy as him. Jackson tells him to not get the wrong idea. He is lazy, but he doesn't want to have him on his consciousness for not helping, and nowadays, it seems like he keeps trying to learn new things. After night falls, Encred attempts to face his second wall in the face of a sure death. The only objective he must complete is to hear them coming. He hears the footsteps of the guards that are on patrol, the sound of the torches, but no sound of the assassin. He tries desperately to hear him, but he ends up meeting the same fate, and awakes again to the annoying sound of an old tale. Even if he died, his body remembers everything as clearly as day. He remembers what he learned, and the pain he suffered. He goes back to Jackson once again, who tells him that he can get a lot of information from sound, as it can tell him the location of something purely based on the direction, and once he is able to hear faint sounds, his ears will have become the second pair of eyes he needs. He suddenly snaps his fingers and tells Encred that sound is a wave. It rings out in all directions, no matter how silent it may be. In the chaos of 1,000 sounds mixed together, he needs to isolate one and maintain it. Encred goes to try just that in one of the busiest parts of the camp, and practices what Jackson taught him. He first isolates the sound of the flags flying about. There must be at least 7 to 10 flags flying together. Then he isolates the sounds of the footsteps that are right next to him. He attempts to feel every single sound, the familiar and unfamiliar, whatever they may be. Suddenly Krang appears and asks what kind of training he's doing now, while also calling him Ensi. Encred asks about that weird nickname, and Krang notes that it's just a nickname. He must be fine with it, right? Encred sure isn't, but he also doesn't care that much. As for the training, he is just sitting around here like an idiot doing nothing, not actually training. Krang finds that strange, as he doesn't seem to be the type of man who sits around and wastes his time, right? Night falls once again, and the same things happen. He is poisoned, and Krang is stabbed to death. This is the 33rd day, another failure. On the 34th day, Encred didn't hear a single thing again, and he continued this cycle of failure again and again. What Encred needs isn't more experience, divine intervention, or a sudden realization. What he must repeatedly do is what he must do, no matter what. This time, when Krang attempts to sneak up on him, he opens his eyes before Krang can speak a word. Who is surprised that he actually sensed him? He must be training his perception, right? Since he isn't an idiot who wastes time. On this night, as soon as the assassin throws the poison needle, Encred dodges decisively and strikes back at the assassin. From now on, the faceless death he has met countless times is no longer faceless. The assassin gets mad and retaliates right back at Encred, who can feel that he's not great at combat. Despite his assassin abilities, he can kill him. He looks at the others to make sure they are okay. Vengeance is dead, but Krang is unsheathing his sword and getting ready for battle. Even if this guy is inexperienced, he will not let his guard down, as he is still an assassin and must know all of his vital points. He desperately tries to hit Encred and finally gets him with a throwing knife, but that's when the fairy commander rushes in and Encred moves his target to her. If he does not attack first, he will most certainly die. This action allows the assassin to throw a bunch of poison needles at Encred's unsafe back and at Krang, who has no chance of defending himself. Instead of retaliating, the fairy rushes behind Encred to catch all of the poison needles with her cape and then moves on to Krang, saving them both. Encred previously thought that she was with the assassin, but now she protected them. Whatever the case may be, now's his chance to put an end to this. He rushes in blade first into the assassin, who manages to deflect his attack, but without much choice, he runs away, ending the night in a victory. Krang comes from behind and notes that the assassin must have come for him, which Encrid already knows, as nobody is going to pay for an assassin to kill a boot soldier like himself or vengeance. The fairy notes that it's precisely as he says. He has sharp senses for a soldier. Encrid notices how she's still gripping her sword tightly. She was an ally for him, but she cannot let something like this be known, and since he is a witness, he knows what must come next. Suddenly, Krang gets in front of him and tells the fairy commander that he has a favor to ask, as he doesn't want anyone to die today. The commander bows down to him and says that she will do as he wishes. Krang wants vengeance to be rescued too, as he can sense that he's not dead, and the commander confirms that with a little antidote, he should wake up soon. Encrid thinks that she must be knowledgeable about antidotes, and Krang moves on to cleaning up this mess, as it's going to be a bother if people find out assassins were in the camp. Encrid notes that nobody will be suspicious of anything if there is nothing left, which he has an idea for. Eventually, they burn down the entire tent, and people rush with water while they confirm that only 2 survivors remain out of the 3. With this, the traces of the assassins have been removed, and Krang will take care of anything else. He and the commander walk away from the camp in the dead of night, with the commander noting that if that squad leader hadn't slowed the assassin down, he would have died. Did he perhaps change his mind because of him? Krang confirms it, as that man is just too interesting. He has been trying to avoid something like this, but when he thinks about him, he just can't feel anything else. He must have rubbed off on him, but the next time they meet, they will do so in their respective roles. Inside Encrid's mind, the hollow scythe of the Reaper disappears, though the boatman comes around and says that he will meet death again in the future. Encrid is more confident than ever, and tells him to bring it on. Finally, he beat another repeating day, and managed to wake up the next morning. Now he can sense the presence of most things, but he still couldn't sense that fairy, so he has a lot to do when he gets back. Thankfully, he wasn't injured anywhere, so he can return now. But before he does, Vengeance asks why he saved him from the fire like that, as they didn't know each other. Encrid can't believe this guy is talking shit about him saving his sorry ass, but he says that they are comrades. There is no other reason needed than that. Vengeance feels kind of embarrassed, as he gave him a lot of crap before. He really is selfless. He also asks if he's returning to his squad, which Encrid confirms, and Vengeance tells him to prepare for an awful vibe when getting there. Encrid asks what happened, and Vengeance explains that there's a rumor going around that the entire base is cursed by some kind of spirit. At the team camp, Ragna and Rem are bickering about something, which soon turns into a brawl, with everyone near them running away so as not to get hurt by these bastards. They continue their fighting with punch after punch, until Rem has had enough and promises to split his skull open, and Ragna tells him to bring it, as he is nothing but a stinking barbarian. Encrid comes around and says that the base isn't cursed, but he might as well be with these bastards. He tells them to stop, which puzzles them, as they thought he was dead, which Encrid denies, but he will soon go crazy if they don't stop doing this shit. 4 days have passed since Encrid has returned to his squad, and because of his improved senses, he notices Jackson, who is trying to leave quietly, and apologizes for waking him. Encrid says that it's fine, since he was going to wake up and go train anyway. Jackson also notes that he has a pretty keen hearing sense. Even though he only started a few days ago, he should keep it up, as he will help in any way possible. The usual battles are few and far between, since winter is steadily approaching. Since he has a lot of extra time, Encrid will use it to train himself until he cannot anymore, as that is the only thing he can do. When he gets back from his training, he notices Auden doing one-arm push-ups with a giant rock on his back. He says that he must be returning from his morning workout. He is keeping busy these days. He finishes his push-ups and gets up, towering over Encrid as he does so. He notes that a well-trained body is a weapon too, so he should be able to withstand a kick from the frog now, though his body is still too thin, so he should keep training like he has done up until now. Encrid thinks that he's just too large, but says that he will try. As they try to talk about something else, a commotion can be heard in the nearby tent, as Rem has kicked Ragna off of his bed, since it was his turn for duty, yet he dares to still sleep like a lazy bastard. The barely awake Ragna crawls to his sword and grabs it before hurling it at Rem, who already had his axes prepared. They are again stopped by Encrid, who asks what they are doing, and Auden prays for their foolish minds. Rem says that he's hungry, and this bastard who is on kitchen duty is still sleeping like a baby. Encrid tells him to go ahead and start cooking, which he agrees to. Rem calls him a bastard and says that there was no need for what he did if he was going to do it anyway, but Ragna pushes him away, as he stinks. Encrid asks Rem why he's picking fights for no reason. Is he that bored? He notes that it is precisely that. The lack of battles is making him very cranky and active. Encrid notes that he shouldn't waste his energy on a random person, and should come with him, as he wants to duel once again. They go and do just that, with Rem hitting him, and telling him to take them better while charging in once again. Encrid is keeping cool with the heart of the beast, and is using his new hearing to efficiently block hits. The most special thing, however, is the thing he practices while dying hundreds of times. His deadly stab. Naturally, Rem dodges, allowing him to grab his blade with one of his blades and grab him with his other hands. He makes Encred fall to the ground with this momentum, ending the fight. He was expecting more from him since he has improved so much in a short span of time, but he has become really boring, as he keeps practicing that same stab again and again. Encred knows what he's talking about, but now he knows that he is different than before. Now, he can repeat everything hundreds if not thousands of times, and still go forward. He beckons Rem for another fight, as he will make sure to destroy him. Rem thinks that this guy's skills are very lacking, but he cannot get enough of those determined eyes of his, so he agrees to continue fighting. Just when they get into position, a downpour of rain arrives, forcing them to retreat back inside. Rem hopes that he won't get a foot fungus because of all this dampness, while everyone is doing their thing, be it praying or sleeping. Kreis comes inside too, and wonders how many times he will have to cancel his duels because of dumb rain like this. He's really starting to believe that they have been cursed. Encred asks what curse he's talking about, and Kreis notes that it's about the one from the rumors. Encred remembers Vengeance talking about something similar, that their entire encampment is cursed. Kreis notes that the weather is too unusual, the casualties have increased, and the incident with the medical tent isn't helping either. People are rightfully saying that it's some kind of curse, though it probably isn't true. This downpour will only add fuel to this fire. Encred notes that the higher-ups will not let these rumors fly around for long. Kreis asks what he's doing at the entrance, and Encred explains he's training his senses. He wonders how he can do that when it's raining so hard, but Encred notes that it's especially because of that. Rem notes that this won't do him any good, but Jackson congratulates him for finding a creative way to train, as it will certainly help him. Rem looks back at him and asks what he taught him, and since when did he start caring about anything, since it's so extremely loud in this place. The others also suggest other ways for him to train, like lying down or checking his posture. Rem now gets that these guys saw what he saw in Encred. Every single one of them is attempting to help him in some way, because they want to see the flames in his eyes grow. In the commander's tent, a meeting is taking place, with the main commander noting that they should send a scouting party before the winter begins. Does anyone have any suggestions for filling in the remaining seats? The ferry commander suggests the 444th squad leader, which the main commander finds kind of dumb. Won't he just hold the scouts back? The ferry commander notes that he could bring some unexpected results to the table, and she recommends him purely out of her ferry instinct. The next day, Encred gets the news that he is being sent to the scout unit. When he gets back to camp, Kreis asks if he did something to piss the commanders off, while Encred is getting dressed up. He notes that he didn't do a thing, though Kreis finds that hard to believe. Encred is still suspicious about the ferry commander. Perhaps she wants to deal with him after Krang has left. Rem comes around and asks if he is really going, as he can help him get out of this whole ordeal. Encred says that he can't use his axe on Superior, like he unusually does, but Rem notes that he wouldn't tell him to do something so harsh. Encred tells him not to actually do it while he's gone, as he has a history of doing stuff like that. Auden starts praying for him constantly, and Ragna offers himself to go in his stead. Encred appreciates it, but the second he leaves the camp, he is bound to get lost, which the others agree with. Jackson explains that since he is going to the tall grass fields, he should pay attention to the changes in the grass noises. That's how he can spot an ambush from a mile away. Rem screams at him to stop teaching him weird, sneaky stuff, making Encred wonder if it's alright to leave these guys here, as they will constantly fight. However, there's nobody better suited for this job. After he enlisted, because of his not-so-great skills, he was constantly moved around and filled in for others. The one place he ended up being useful in was right in this camp, as even on the day he came to their doorstep, they were fighting, but he was able to somehow control these miscreants. Encred tells them that 'tis fine, and Rem wonders if he's brave or dumb. Jackson notes that he should be thanking him, as he would be the one with a hole in his heart by now, though Rem thinks that he would be the one without a head. Encred thinks that even if they are how they are still very good fighters, so it would be a shame to lose them. Thinking like this won't lead to much anyway. He knows where he is in terms of skill, and all he needs to do is get better. Since the scouts are going to the front lines, he can spend his time training his senses. Another member of the scouting unit tells him to focus, as they may be the same rank of squad lead, but he is the leader of this scout squad, so if he has a problem, they should fight it out. This is Andrew Gardner, scout squad leader. The others laugh at Encred's expense, as he is from the outcast squad. He probably doesn't even know how to hold a sword properly. Andrew notes that if he does challenge him, he will try to not hurt him. Since he is already useless, he can't be more than that. He then makes a statement to the squad. If the enemy comes, they just bash their skulls in. Simple as that. Encred can't believe what he is seeing. The scout team, which is supposed to be silent, is now creating a ruckus out of nowhere, and the squad leader is also greener than a freshly sprouted flower. Will this mission really go well? Eventually, one of them finds some tracks, which Andrew recognizes as new tracks, so they should follow them and have themselves a succulent meal. Encred can't believe his stupidity. As news travel in a group of 20, is he seriously going to fight that many? Someone next to him starts laughing, as that's not a new track, is a gazelle. He begins talking with Encred, noting that the squad leader is kind of obnoxious. Isn't he? This is Henri, a member of the squad. Previously, he was a hunter in a mountain town, and he seemed to not care much about the squad leader. He struck up a conversation with Encred, and they soon became acquaintances. Henry talked about the basics of hunting, which he found pretty useful. He notes that animals have separate paths they walk on in these fields. He will tell him more tomorrow. Because of the leader's incompetence, they spent the whole night searching for invisible news, and the scout squad's day was wasted. While trying to sleep, Encred can hear Andrew bickering with himself, as he must get some results. Anything. The next morning they arrive at a grassy palace, which Andrew recognizes as Green Pearl, or the uselessly tall grass field, as he likes to call it. He tells everyone that they will cross this grass and find the enemy scouts, then bring them back as prisoners and be rewarded. Henry finds this idea kind of whack, since they are supposed to scout first, but Encred notes that it's the leader's command, so they must follow it. As they trek this grassy land, Encred is surprised that Andrew isn't bellyaching anymore, and is actually taking this mission seriously now. Henry finds it strange that there's no animal droppings in the area, because food is abundant around here. There should have been at least a few. That's when a large feline creates a loud step and rushes past them. Encred gets what's going on and grabs Andrew while telling everyone to stay down, and sure enough, arrows start flying, killing 2 squad members on the spot. Andrew finally gets that the enemy is attacking and orders everyone to run, which they do, but they are slowly picked off one by one without much of a fight, and Encred is the last one left, completely surrounded. By using Jackson's listening technique, Encred is able to get quite far from the ambushers and even dodge some arrows. But unfortunately for him, the enemy attacks from all directions, so he dies, while thinking that they must avoid this spot. He tries to tell everyone not to go in there, but Andrew calls him a crazy bastard, and threatens to beat him up if he keeps talking crap. Since nobody will listen, perhaps he has to make his way out of this place alone. With that in mind, he tries to run in a different direction at the moment of the attack, but the enemies still get him. Since Encred has the power to repeat on his side, he doesn't worry, and keeps trying and trying. One time he got caught in the open by 20 crossbowmen who put him down like a rabid dog. Then after that, a squad of spearmen impaled him without mercy. Even when he managed to make it to the night, these bastards wouldn't stop searching for him. But this allowed him to notice that their uniforms are green. They must be a squad specializing in ambushes. He surprisingly makes it out of the bush and into a large camp, where he sees something that shocks him right before getting stabbed from behind. But he doesn't even care. Now he has some critical information. The day repeats again, and Andrew says the same words that scrape Encred's ears. They will go in, find the scouting party, and capture them alive to be amply rewarded. They have already tried that a few dozen times, and once they go in, the result is the same every time. Nobody makes it out alive. He now knows that the Aspen fuckers are hiding something in that camp. He needs to find out what that is, but if he gives that thing up, he will not have to die. Perhaps this may be the end of all of this, but he knows one thing, that he will not run away from this wall. Nothing can stop him. Andrew tells him to get a move on, and one of the members says that he knows this bastard is a problem, but they should just go with it, as he is sure that Andrew has issues of his own to worry about. Encred asks why he has to put up with that. There's a limit to how much bullshit he can take from a dumbass. Isn't he tired of taking orders from a child? Or is he perhaps kissing his ass so much in hopes of getting something? Before the guy can get mad, Encred pushes him away, making Andrew ask if he is disobeying his direct orders. Encred says that it's nothing like that. He's going to become the commander from now on, whether they like it or not. Even if he doesn't like Andrew, he knows that from everyone. He survives the longest alongside that guy and Henry. That guy especially fights like a beast, fitting of his appearance. He is the most skilled one in this squad, but he doesn't scoff at Andrew at all, so he has to be some bodyguard for him. Andrew draws his sword and says that he can take command only if he beats him, so he better get ready. Encred knows that a normal soldier would not have something like a bodyguard, and Andrew seems pretty trained, considering his posture. He has little experience too, given his skill level, so he must be some lord's son or something. However, that doesn't really click, as the son of a lord wouldn't have to be worried about getting results. Perhaps he's a fallen noble. Andrew notes that based on his pathetic skills yet strangely high rank, he must be some sore loser who only trains in hopes of getting paid. He is different than he is, and he has an important mission to fulfill. Before he can say anything else, Encred says that he talks too much, so he should come here already, as he won't even use a sword to make it fair. Encred did this because he would struggle against Andrew if this was a normal fight, but now he is obviously mad and looking down on him. This action will give him the opportunity to take over the situation instantly, and use it to craft a new future. With one blow, Andrew is on the ground, much to the surprise of the others. Encrid says that he is the commander now, and he hopes that they won't have a problem with that, because he won't care anyway. Nobody says anything, not even the bodyguard, so Encrid has completed his first step. Later that day, they go through the bush like usual, with one of the soldiers wondering what Encrid is thinking. Suddenly, he asks Henry what his dream is, who says that he wants to marry a beautiful woman who runs a flower shop. Encrid notes that to do that, he must survive today. He asks another soldier what his dream is, who says that his lover just had a baby, so he hopes to raise it together. Encrid tells him that if he doesn't want that child to grow up without a dad, he needs to make it out alive. He asks the other two soldiers the same thing, with one saying that he wants to open up his own business, and the other simply wishing to return home. Finally, he gets to Andrew, who wants to fulfill his mother's dying wish, to revive House Gardner. Encrid feels like all of their responses are the same, as they all must live in order to fulfill them. He turns around to face them, and puts his entire sincerity into these next words. They will make it out of here alive. He did this because he needs these guys to trust him, and there is nothing more motivating than remaining alive. So with the enemy appearing soon, he plans to break through first. He suddenly orders Henry to shoot an arrow in that direction, who sees nothing, but Encrid commands him to do it. So he does and hits a soldier square in the head. Everyone is surprised to see enemies around here. Encrid tells Andrew to follow him while rushing in, who does so with annoyance in his face. But Encrid is doing this to gain the upper hand in this battle, and be the ambushers. The soldiers react quickly to Encrid, but Andrew silences one, and his bodyguard protects him from behind. With these two fighters, they are able to cut a few people down, so now the 12 original ambushers have been cut down to 8. The rest are ready enough to charge in after the sacrifices of their comrades, but Encrid does not falter in his command, and commands everyone to kill everyone. With them having the upper hand, they are able to cut most of the soldiers down to size. The enemy is having a hard time locating them in a tall grass field like this one, but the main reason they were discovered first was because of this beast, an animal who was caught in human squabbles, a sign of death before, but now he is a boon, as Encrid is using it to locate the enemies. He knows that the only reason the enemy failed to spot their ambush is because of this animal, so since he has a debt to pay to it, he will make sure that it gets out of here alive. The others announce that they are done with the enemy, and Encrid tells them that they will move immediately. There is no time to waste. The beast follows him from behind a bit, until it notices that it will be left alone. Unbeknownst to it, this oversized cat has changed everyone's lives, and allowed fate to change. After a single casualty, Encrid's unit now has 6 people remaining. He would have liked to save everyone, but he knows that it's impossible given the situation. He's just glad that so many survived. They move in to ambush yet another ambush, all thanks to Encrid's repetitions, which allowed him to know the quantity and location of these groups. He knows that if they keep going straight, they will get shot down by the crossbowmen, so he takes a far right to avoid them and disposes of the spearmen who were after them, something that must be done quickly, as they cannot be hindered. They are using hit-and-run tactics and low blows in order to survive. Even if it's not honorable, it sure does work. After taking the spearmen down, Andrew's bodyguard notices that he's overexerting himself, and since it's getting dark, they must find the exit now. He tells Encrid all of this, who only says that they are going further inside. He will also not accept any disagreements. They must obey and follow him. Suddenly, the bodyguard puts his blade at Encrid's neck and says that he should act accordingly. He has no plans to follow him to his damnation. Even if he has to kill him and desert him, he will find a way to live. Encrid notes that he must also know that it's too late to turn back. After the commotion they made, their retreat will be blocked by swarms of enemies. The bodyguard asks what the alternative is. Follow him into the pits of hell? Encrid pushes his sword away and says that he would like to make one thing clear. He wants to survive just as much as they do, probably even more considering what he did. Andrew previously thought that this guy would be some useless bastard, just like his father, who gave up on life and wasted the entire wealth of the house to drink his sorrows away. But he is not like that. He reminds him of someone else. He remembers his mother's dying words. Their house is finished, but even so, she hoped that he would become a person who could lead everyone, so he should earn people's trust by becoming a leader and rebuild this family. Encrid is like the person he always wanted to be, so when he says with such confidence in his eyes that they will get out of there, he has no choice but to follow him until they see the end. The bodyguard tries to change his mind, but Andrew says that Encrid is now the captain, and a squad always follows their leader. With that out of the way, he tells everyone to crouch down and follow him until he gives another signal. The first step of the method to escape from this place is to take initiative and ambush the enemy to break the encirclement. They did that, so now for the second step, they have to be quiet. This is the critical point Encrid has found after many repetitions. Only at this exact time, and at this exact place, can they let the legions of soldiers pass them and come out of it alive. Everything is going according to plan. So now, Encred has reached the final step. When the sun sets, darkness rises, and the reason they failed to escape this place is clear. They eventually arrive at the enemy camp, where Encred wanted to be. The soldiers of Aspen are so adamant about protecting the field because they are hiding something in here that they don't want anyone to know about, something that is life and death to them. So, what would happen when something more important than catching them happened? If that happens, they will definitely find a way out of here and live to see another day. Encred tells everyone that he will set the enemy camp on fire, which the bodyguard thinks is insane, as they are literally in the middle and will probably be surrounded and killed. Encred asks for his name, which he says is Mac, so Encred tells him that he won't tolerate his disobedience anymore. He tries to say something, but Andrew tells him to be quiet, which surprises Mac quite a bit. However, he knows too that they can't do anything else but follow the commander, as the clouds are covering the moon already. Encred suddenly cuts a tent open, making Mac get ready for battle, but it's revealed that there's nobody inside, and Encred moves like he knows what's going to happen, since he is rushing through the enemy camp like crazy. Mac is more confused by the fact that they have not seen a single enemy yet. How is something like this possible when they are in their own camp? Encred suddenly tells them to wait as they get near the middle, as there are some soldiers nearby. He has infiltrated this camp at least a dozen times or so already, but when he noticed that flag and tried to touch it, the entire base suddenly shifted their attention to him and killed him. He explains to everyone that what the other soldiers in the grass field are trying to protect is that flag. That is their main objective here. So what would happen if that flag were to suddenly light a flame? Max still doesn't get how Encred knows all of this stuff, but that's when he remembers the ferry company commander, as she was the one who appointed him to this position. The reason why this guy suddenly took control of the squad and infiltrated it was to complete a secret mission that was given to him. Encred tells everyone that while they cause chaos, they will also run and split into groups of 2 from now on. One group will be the bait, and the other will start the fire. Thinking he knows everything, Mac volunteers to be in the bait group, confusing Encred, as just moments before he was quite defiant, although this is better for him anyway. He has dragged this squad into this encampment many times already, but has never had this many people, meaning that today is his best try yet, and can probably do it. With that, they begin with Mac throwing a rock at a guard and running away, making the others rush to grab him as quickly as possible. With this opportunity, Encred grabs a nearby torch and rushes to light the flag, but that's when a large brutish man stands above him and strikes his torch down. Encred is shocked, as he did not hear him coming. This is a person he has not seen yet. He is not one of his variables. Where did such a beast come from? The brutish man calls him a rat, but Encred tells him that he's too late already, as the torch made it to a nearby tent, which caught fire quickly. This sends all of the soldiers into a panic, and they all rush to grab some water while some are still after the intruders. Mac has baited away most of the enemies, and he got the attention of the rest, meaning that Andrew has done his job and set fire to the rest of the tents. Now it's time to get out of here. He smashes his foot into the ground and propels his whole body forward towards the unknowing brute. Encred can finally see his way out of here. He can see tomorrow. Unfortunately for him, in a split second, the brute dodges his attack and lands one of his own, slashing Encred's side. He thinks that this was the most perfect stab he could have ever mustered, yet he didn't even make a dent in this bastard. He cannot beat him. He can't do it with his current level. He barely managed to get out of that brown hell. He was ambushed there and killed 1,000 times. He thought that he had finally passed the wall for tomorrow, but perhaps this guy was the real wall all along. If he challenges him, only death will await him. Then he will have to do all of this again, and hope that everything goes right as it did today. Suddenly, the brute's expression becomes furious, as he has seen that his opponent is laughing. Encred refuses to give up just because of this, and fully believes that he's going to beat this guy. He has passed countless trials and tribulations before. A simple brute will not be enough to stop him. Encred attempts to attack the brute, who expertly parries his attack and uses this opportunity to unleash a heavy lunge, something that Encred barely dodges. But he does not stop there, as he uses his momentum to swing at his neck before making the sword land on him again. Encred does manage to block the sword, but he can't believe how swift and precise this guy is. He tries to mitigate this difference in skill by throwing a knife after clashing once again, but the brute easily blocks it with the back of his hand and goes in with a powerful thrust. That's when someone screams that the fire is spreading, making the brute's attack go to Encred's ear, as he turns to look behind and sees their precious flag aflame. Someone starts screaming at the brute to stop fighting, as this situation demands his attention too. The brute can see that his opponent will not go down without fighting, so he relents and says that they will certainly see each other again. Encred can't believe that he's backing away so easily. Perhaps he was not the true wall he thought he was before. That's not true, however. He is still someone he will have to overcome. He must improve if he wants to survive. That's when Andrew comes around and says that they have to leave now, while they still can. The brute gives Encrid one last stare, making him sheath his weapon and command everyone to retreat. They do just that, and Encrid notices that one of them has disappeared, meaning that there are only 5 left in the squad. The bodyguard asks if this is it, or will their enemies send another pursuit team after them. Encrid notes that they are busy right now, and notices that Henry is lagging behind, while some grave Aspen soldiers charge them. The squad refuses to let one of their comrades die while they are there, so they all charge the enemies and take care of them before they do the same to them. Encrid tells everyone to keep running, and Henry notes that it will be harder for those guys to follow them if they run towards the fox and snake field, making the one carrying him ask if that does not also apply to them, but Henry knows a hunter's path that not many know about. With that path, they easily evade the enemy, but they still have to trek the entire field, which, with the help of Henri, is a pretty easy task. After a while, Encrid finally sees what he has fought for the next day. They continue running until they get to the camp, where most of them fall to the ground. Encrid takes a deep breath and enjoys the fresh air of a new day. At that moment, Grey Dog's company commander asks what happened to the flag, but the mysterious figure only says that they must prepare again, and that he did not expect the Grey Dog to fail like this. The commander does not understand how this happened. The soldiers stationed in the tall grass were Grey Dog's best men, but a few measly scouts managed to get past them and set a fire before escaping. Grey Dog is an independent company with independent operational control. The name of this company comes from the Grey Dog that resides within Aspen's principalities. It has a persistent temperament, and it has a need to connect with whatever target it decides to hunt. Whether the beast is in love with its target or wants to maul their flesh slowly, the result is the same. Therefore, this company, which is named after this hound, is also called the Persistent Lovers. The commander asks Mitch Hurrier, the one Encrid fought with, if his opponent was really that strong. Mitch says that were it not for the fire, he would have killed him. Grey Dog notes that he got lucky, which is also a powerful skill. From now on, I will call him Grey Dog, because he is the commander of the company, so he deserves to be called by the company's name, and it's easier than saying every time the commander. But Mitch vows to not let him slip away again. While tending to his wounds, Encrid is still conflicted, as he did not pass the wall in front of him. He wanted to keep fighting that guy, but the situation demanded something else from him. That's when fate connects these two, as Mitch promises to kill that guy, and Encrid vows to overcome this wall no matter what. While Rem is swinging his axe out of boredom in the tent, he wonders what Encrid is doing, as there is no news of him as of late. He suddenly stops, and wonders if that bastard died. He got a lot better in a lot of ways recently, but he's still a weakling, so his dying wouldn't be that shocking. However, he actually likes this bastard, something that does not happen often, though at the end of the day, there's nothing they can do if he really dies. Ragna slowly awakes from his deep slumber and is met straight with Rem looking at him, making him ask why he's doing that. Rem just flips him off, which causes Ragna to do the same, except with his toes. Rem gets angry at his provocation, and notes that he might just kill him after all, which makes Ragna draw his blade, while calling him a crazy bastard. The first thing Encrid does after getting back to camp is report to the ferry commander, who is amazed that he managed to figure out there was an enemy ambush waiting for them, infiltrate the enemy base, and also casually burn it to the ground while surrounded. He says that he only made it out because of his good decision-making and sheer luck, but the ferry commander seems quite suspicious about that. She cannot act on her suspicion, however, so she just sends him back and tells him to recover. She previously only half hoped he would do something, but she didn't expect him to prove that he's such a valuable asset. Just who is he? While leaving and wondering what that woman is thinking, Encrid is stopped by Andrew, who sincerely apologizes for acting out at the start of their mission. They are all alive thanks to him. Will they be able to meet again, though? Encrid can't answer that for certain, so he just says that they will meet, but only if fate allows it. Before he leaves fully, Andrew takes one step forward and bows deeply, something that all of them do. Encrid knows that he did good. Those 4 that are bowing now are alive thanks to his decisions. But was that really the best he could do? In the end, he still lost 2 squad members, and perhaps he could have saved them too if he were stronger. Because of his repetitions, he is able to climb over his limits, and eventually he will be done with this desperate struggle and follow the path he always wanted, becoming a knight. He will use these repetitions for that cause, and to prevent them, he will get stronger. Suddenly, his deep thinking is interrupted by a bunch of soldiers screaming about a fight, and sure enough, Ragna and Rem are at it again, with both of them looking like they really want to kill each other, even if they are squad mates. Encrid never saw those kinds of expressions out of them, not in the countless times he sparred with them at least. One of the soldiers resembles them as animals at this point, and Encrid realizes that they just never had to go that far against him. This squabble gave him a goal though, to make them make these kinds of faces with him too. After deflecting Rem's attack, Ragna notices Encrid in public, and Rem tells him that he should report when he's back. Why is he hiding like a rat in a sack of corn? Encrid passes over their questions about his health and starts asking Rem about the way he blocked the attack just now, which makes Rem note that not even a few minutes in, he's already up to his antics. He better just get some sleep. Next, he tries to ask Ragna about his attack, but Ragna asks if he's really going to do this now. Encrid asks why that's wrong, but Ragna just shuts up and leaves. Encrid is quite confused by his attitude, as it seems he had something to say, but if there's a guy who will speak his mind no matter what, it's him, so he will say it eventually. The battalion commander swiftly learned of the enemy forces trying to ambush near the grass field, so he moved an entire battalion closer to it. Encrid's wounds healed significantly, and he constantly reflected on the way he fought. While having dinner, Encrid finishes first, making his squad mates ask if he can't just rest a little. He says that he will just train for a bit, making Rem note that if he continues to mess up his body like that, he will croak soon. The next day, Ragna wakes up earlier than usual because he is awoken by Encrid's training outside. He slowly gets up and drags his sword along while thinking about some things. He's very good with the sword, as getting stronger isn't that difficult for him. He even had a chance to become a knight at one point. However, all of that bores him to death. There is nothing he wants to do as a knight, so why would he spend his time and sweat on it? He cannot find a single purpose behind getting stronger, so he loses his own purpose. Just like that, he came to a standstill, never improving, never falling off. He arrives at Encrid's training spot, where his injuries get the better of him, which makes him fall to the ground. Ragna can see just from this that he learned his fundamentals wrong, which are a must if he wants a proper start to getting stronger. With all of the shortcuts he made up for his awful fundamentals, becoming powerful for this guy is impossible, even with training. However, he still has one question for him. Why is he putting his body through such hardship and trying hard like that? He decided to ask him now, why does he do this? Encrid's answer is simple. He just wants to become stronger. Ragna then asks what he will do after that, and Encrid answers swiftly again. He will become a knight. Ragna feels like a knight is just someone who knows how to fight. Does that really have meaning to him? Encrid explains that the knight he aspires to be is someone who decides for himself what is wrong and raises his sword for it, for honor, for the sick and downtrodden, and for the ones he cherishes most. Ragna begins questioning himself because of his words, as strength really is just a tool. What is a knight then? Or better yet, what is a sword? What does he want out of this short life of his? Well, pondering it like this is dumb, so he will just walk that path himself. He gets closer to Encrid, and he comes to him with a proposition. Would he like to learn the way of the sword? Encrid immediately accepts Ragna's offer, who thinks that he shouldn't have proposed such a thing, because he feels lazy about it already. Still, that determined look on this guy's face might prove quite interesting. He notes that he knows Rem taught him the something of the beast, right? That, and his stab. He must get rid of everything, except those two things. Encrid asks if he also has to get rid of the Valen mercenary technique, which Ragna confirms he really has to get rid of in particular. If he doesn't, even if he does learn a new technique, he will return to his habits, which is just human nature after all. If that happens, he should just give up now, so it's time to choose. Either forget everything and begin anew, or remain complacent in his mediocrity. Encrid immediately chooses to start fresh, which surprises Ragna, and he asks if he's sure. Encrid just asks what he must do first, which makes Ragna think that he's not normal at all. He explains that he has a good sword technique, so he does not need to have a lighter blade like he does now. He would profit a lot more from a longsword, so they should swap. Encrid asks if handing his sword over is okay, but Ragna doesn't care. It's not that special anyway. He begins instructing him on how to wield it, and notices that he's clenching quite tightly. Encrid explains that he does it so he doesn't lose the sword, making him wonder who taught him such a thing. Encrid says that Rem did, which doesn't surprise Ragna at all, but he orders him in position and starts attacking him with full force, making Encrid have to block and see why clenching so tightly is such a bad idea. Ragna notes that it should hurt if he does that. If he stiffens up, things are going to break. He's like an old branch or something like that. Encrid wonders why all of these squad members are awful talkers. Just what is that metaphor supposed to mean? Is he perhaps saying that he's too stiff because of how much he's clenching the sword? He probably wants him to stay flexible to keep the sword from breaking, so he needs to become more malleable. With that, he begins his training in earnest, with Ragna instructing him again and again when he spots an issue. This goes on for a while, until Encrid falls and allows Ragna to think. He did not expect for things to be this bad. This guy doesn't even know the basics, which is not something that can be taught so easily. Still, Encrid refuses to give up. He slowly rises and asks Ragna to go again. Ragna can't deny his conviction and notes that they should take things slow. Baby steps are the best after all. That's when Rem arrives, and asks what they are doing here, skipping meals and disappearing like that. He asks Encrid if Ragna is giving him a hard time. Does he want him to deal with him? Encrid asks what's going on, as he's not usually dressed up. Rem tells them that they are being called, as the enemy forces are gathering in the distance. Every soldier gets ready and in position, but Ragna wonders if teaching Encred those things was a mistake, as he's still new and can't fight well with them. He just might die because of that, meaning that he will unfortunately have to look after him. Encred really wanted to learn more from Ragna. In the distance, a familiar flag flies, as the enemy approaches, and the warlock notes that this is the end for them. As soon as he says that, the entire area is covered in a mysterious and heavy fog, making people unable to see each other. That's when they all hear a certain sharp noise coming towards them, and only Encred recognizes that they are arrows, so he tells everyone as such. But some do not have the opportunity to defend. The ferry commander realizes this is no common fog. They have been completely had. The warlock laughs in their faces, as getting this spell ready was a hassle. He had to offer the blood of tons of animals, and collect the cleanest water from the purest lakes, while also constantly casting rain spells. Once they activated this spell, it obscured all vision, and unless they get under the casting point of the spell, that being the flags, this will be a one-sided battle. This is called the Fog of Annihilation. Mitch comes next to him and sees that he's quite satisfied, which the warlock confirms. He barely managed to get this working, especially after they lost a flag. This makes Mitch think about his opponent. He has to find him and teach him a lesson in manners. Encred dodges the incoming arrows the best he can, and someone behind him warns him to keep his head down, which he recognizes as Ragna. The one in front of him cursing out the enemy is definitely Rem. Even if he's so close, he can't see him, meaning that they cannot fight like this at all. Only when an arrow falls right next to him does he realize that his breath is getting strained, and he is getting stiff, and his legs are refusing to move, meaning that he cannot use anything that Ragna taught him. He didn't expect to get all of his lessons on the first try, and even Ragna said that he should go back to his old style, since he doesn't have this new style down and will make a lot of mistakes. Even then, Encred knew that only death awaited him if he tried, so he had to resort to some more drastic measures. He rushes through the fog, allowing an enemy to impale him with a spear. The enemy thinks that this guy is over with, but he is spooked when he sees the determined smile on his face, and finishes him off quickly, allowing Encred to go back to his teachings. If he's honest, Ragna is not a good teacher, because he is a genius. Things are more obvious for him, and they are hard to put into words. Even now he wonders what he did wrong, as all he commanded him to do was swing downward. Encred knows that he's not making fun of him. He's just like that, and asks where he should center his gravity. Ragna doesn't know how to answer, something that Encred expected. His explanations are quite lacking, but observing and listening are his strong suits, so he will remember his stance, no matter how many times it takes. He eventually arrives back in the fight, and can deflect arrows, but he is still too stiff, and chooses to let himself die once again, so that he can continue learning. He does that until the 31st day, where he becomes capable of flexible movement. Ragna notes that his steps have become quite fluid. Where has he learned that? Anyway, with that he should be able to learn the basics. The 3 basic attacks are cutting, stabbing, and slashing. He should use the edge of the blade for defense, and if the sword is of good quality, he can use the sides too. The shortest distance between him and his opponent is called the line of attack, so using the sword is about blocking his opponent's line while extending his. He should draw his opponent in his head the best he can, and reach out to him with the sword. The next time he goes into battle, he can easily dodge the enemy's spear that was always ending him, too easily. Unfortunately for him, 3 more await him behind, but it's fine, as little by little, he is starting to change the usual today. He successfully learns how to parry, and dies again. He also successfully learns the diagonal slash. These things add a little bit more at a time, and even if he dies, he doesn't care, as his progress is steady. This time, when he fights Ragna seriously, he is able to use all that he learned to successfully defeat Ragna, who sees an entirely different person in Encred, because he has truly changed. With this, he thinks that he can't improve anymore with his talent, and despite Ragna's screaming, he still charges in. His body, swift and easy as a feather, is able to dodge the enemy. This is the road he must take in order to become a knight, and even if he experiences the most pain anyone has felt, he feels gladness and joy. This is so fun that he could go insane from it. He goes back once again, to the time when Ragna asked him if he wanted to learn the sword. He immediately agrees that, like he did all of these times, he will die as many times as it takes for him to achieve his goal. After testing him a bit, Ragna realizes that he's good. Too good, in fact. Has he been fighting like a second-rate mercenary on purpose up until now? He's got all the basics down. To him, it seems like he needs more experience in the field, rather than more training. With those words in mind, Encred goes through today tons of times. Must be over 200 by now. And now, he tries to use everything, to see where the techniques he learned will take him. He slashes through the first enemy like butter. He grabs the knife that killed him so many times, and uses it to attack the hidden enemies in the front, who are all confused. Encred disappears for a bit, making the enemy think that they are safe until he comes around and starts slashing them up. One of them tries to shoot him with the crossbow, but Encred has learned from Ragna that he should use his eyes to predict, his feet to move closer, and his hands to end the fight. Encred can only smile, as things are much different. Fighting feels fresh and swift, compared to when he didn't know anything. He wants more, so he moves forward with great anticipation. He is met with a dozen or so men pointing their crossbows at him. One of them congratulates him for making it this far, but this is where he will stop. Encred takes a step forward and says that they should fight things out with their swords like men do. The enemies become scared of him, and so they shoot him down before he can do anything. Suddenly, he is dragged into the realm of the boatman, who calls him foolish. As he has walked into his own grave, he must have lost his mind because of all the deaths he has suffered. Encred wakes up again, wondering why the boatman appeared, just to curse him out for dying so many times. Rem asks why he has such a blank stare on his face, making Encred think about him. He is the first one to call out the spell whenever it happens, and the enemy formation lacks any tact. They are only there to protect the flags. To find out, he asks Rem if he knows anything about spells. Rem asks why he would like to know, and Encred excuses it as just making conversation. Rem asks if he even knows the difference between magic and spells, but Encred only knows that magic is more common, which is true. Rem explains that a spell requires some type of medium, something that is very important in casting spells. They cannot exist without a medium, not like magic does. Encred finally gets it. The fog appears because of the spell that uses the flag as a medium, so when the flag breaks, the fog disperses too. He asks Rem if his tribe uses spells too, which Rem has seen a few times, but there are not many actual spellcasters around. Most of them are hexcasters, warlocks as they are commonly called. Encred suddenly leaves, as he has somewhere to go, to train. Ragna notices that he knows all the basics. They have the same background, but does he know of the Oniak sword technique? About 500 or so years ago, there was a prodigy, a 1 in a million talent. The child, born on a sword farm, killed 12 bandits that attacked the farm, with nothing but a fireplace poker. Having lost his parents at an early age, he began learning the sword, and a noble, having heard the rumors of his actions, took him in. That prodigy's name was Leonesis Oniak. However, even if he was gifted, he was also cursed. He began losing his strength at just 10 years old, and by 12, he was fully paralyzed. Just like that, a prodigy destined for greatness was lost to history. However, his dream of improving swordsmanship did not falter, so at the age of 20, he compiled all of the sword techniques and categorized them into 5 categories: the righteous elaborate sword, the heavy strong sword, the flowing confounding sword, the fast swift sword, and the gentle parrying sword. He rewrote the entire history of the blade, and with this, the Oniak family became the greatest house of the empire, and even today, his technique is used as a foundation for all swordsmanship. Even so, branches of these techniques began to appear, like the Western swift sword, or the Eastern chi sword. Among these, the technique he personally developed branches from the Northern heavy sword, and should be more useful than whatever Rem taught him. He should concentrate on one single point, forget everything around him, and only focus on his and the enemy's sword. He will show it to him first, so that he can learn from it. Before Encred can react, Ragna lets out a slash so swift and deadly that it cuts his neck. He knows that he nearly died, and that's when Rem comes around, asking Ragna if he wants to kill the squad leader. Ragna notes that people learn better while almost dying. He's just helping him out. Rem notes that he can't learn shit if he doesn't have a head. Does he even know how long it took for him to teach him the heart of the beast? While they argue, Encred thinks that both of them are awful teachers, and Rem knows that Ragna is from the far north, which breeds more barbaric people. Ragna also knows that he's from the southern barbarian tribes, which makes him want to fight him now. But Encred tells him to stop, as he's here because they were ordered to come, right? Before he leaves, Ragna tells Encred to remember how alert he is when he's about to die. If he succeeds in concentrating on a single point, he will be able to do anything with the sword. As they get ready for battle, Encred thinks that this technique is quite similar to the beast heart that makes him numb to death, though there are some different key points. He needs to experience it to learn it, and as for the medium of the spell, he will just have to get rid of it and escape. With that, he adds another objective besides learning. He will destroy that flag. He knows that if he used his squad it would be easy to get there, but he will go forward first until he knows that he cannot any longer. Concentrating on a single point proves to be useful, as he died a lot of times because of how unprepared he was. To survive the assassin ambush, he trained his ears. To survive the battlefield, he learned the heart of the beast, but concentrating is proving to be difficult. Ragna tries to teach him again by just showing him. He should have felt the tip of the blade slow down or something along those lines. Encred still doesn't get it. Is the heart of the beast interfering with this? Ragna explains that everything else should fade besides his opponent's blade, which will give him the ability to predict the path of the sword. Ancred knows that channeling his fear of death isn't the way to do it, so he asks Ragna how he did it. He notes that he could always do it. It's just easy for him. Ancred knows that he won't get any good information from Ragna, so he will just have to figure it out on his own. He will keep practicing this concentration, but his first priority now is knocking that damn flag down. He should minimize casualties and charge in. When the fog drops, he screams at everyone to drop down, and then orders them to shield, saving the lives of those who would have just died before. He has repeated this today 300 times already. He knows where the attacks come from even with his eyes closed. He slays the first enemy without him even knowing he was there, and the second too. The others charge in, but they are all going into the meat grinder, as Ancred is now determined to achieve something. Their commander tells them to rally and prepare for the attack, making Ancred smile as he can see fear on their faces. He charges in so hard that he goes through any blade and smashes the flag down. It took him 10 days to get here, but he finally succeeded. However, the fog doesn't disappear, which is strange, as the flag is done for. The enemies circle and stab him all around, with one of them noting that he has been deceived. This gives Ancred enough information. There is only one real flag, the rest are fakes, so he must find the real flag. He charges in once again, as he has a 1 in 5 chance to get it right. He orders everyone to shield themselves, who cannot hear him, or rather are too confused to, allowing the arrows to pass through and slay them. Ancred wonders why they aren't listening this time. Perhaps it's timing. He has to let them catch their breath. After another 3 days, he broke the second flag, which was a fake, meaning that he had 4 more to go. He spent another 5 days for the third flag, which was a fake. It took him 7 days to get to the fourth one, which was also a fake, so he died again. There are only 2 left, and he can only guess, but the real one is most likely the one furthest from the battle. Now, he orders everyone well, and even makes Rem follow him, who asks if he's out of his mind. Ancred knows that the flag is far away, so he can't get exhausted before getting to it. He lets Rem handle the enemies in the front, as he slides past them. Even if unarmored, Rem can handle them pretty well. He has spent an entire year in this today, but now he will end it, as the fog will disappear, and they will win. Suddenly his sword is deflected by Mitch, who notes that God listened to him. He really prayed that he would get the chance to kill him with his hands. Ancred has forgotten this face after so long, and asks Mitch who he is. He cannot believe that he forgot about him when only a few days have passed, but time doesn't work like that for Ancred. Ancred once again asks who he is, which Mitch is annoyed by, but he will remember once he feels his cold blade in his chest. Ancred decisively dodges the incoming blade, and with his new footing, performs an attack that forces Mitch to back away suddenly. He is surprised, as this doesn't seem like the same person he saw before. He's gotten better with the blade, much better. However, he cannot believe this guy is trying to catch him with a single step. Ancred doesn't stop there and moves forward again, this time clashing blades with Mitch, who is amazed by his mastered basics and sword technique. Combined with how he deflects attacks, he's a force to be reckoned with. He pushes Ancred back, who deflects his blade, making Mitch think that he must focus all of his senses on this battle. If he gets distracted for a single moment, he will die. He must pour himself into the blade. The flag shall be forgotten, the outcome of the battle, even the sword techniques he has learned so far. Everything around him fades, leaving only the cold steel of the sword. With this amount of dedication, Mitch gains the advantage by deflecting Ancred's blade, allowing him to impale Ancred through the chest, ending the fight right there and then. Now, Ancred remembers him. He was the guy who blocked the flagpole in the tall grass region. Mitch introduces himself as the Greyhound Squad platoon commander, and Ancred does the same. He's the Naulilia Kingdom's squad commander. The enemies gather around him, as Mitch says that this guy's specialty is hiding, but the others consider him quite wistful. When Mitch looks at Ancred to check, he sees that he has a smile on his face. This is because Ancred realized something. It's not the concentration that comes from the fear of dying that is necessary. What he always needed was a good rival, an opponent who would force him to use everything and fight him with all he's got. Mitch has no time for crazy bastards, and pulls his blade out, ending this today. The next today, Ragna tells him concentration on a single point is similar to the sensation he feels as he's dying, which Ancred kind of listens to, making Ragna wonder if he's given up on his training. Rem as usual calls them to battle, which makes Ancred immediately radiate energy and walk away, with Ragna seeing this energy for himself. Because of it, he thinks that he should go a little harder during the warm-up today. The battle continues as per usual, with Ancred saving lives by telling everyone to duck and shield, just as the arrows come flying through. He doesn't stop there, however, as he tells Rem to follow, and before he can ask if he's insane, Ragna says that he's coming with, making Rem ask if he got an arrow to the head. Ragna tells him to move forward if he doesn't want one right now, and as Ancred inches himself further and further away, both guys butcher the enemy in front of them, trying to make way. Ancred takes the same path as he did before, and meets Mitch just like before. Only this time he recognizes him and says that it's so very nice to see him. Mitch is surprised that he came specifically looking for him, but Encred says that he shouldn't be. He came because he fell in love the first time they fought. Mitch notes that this is the first time someone has come looking for him specifically, with Encred wondering if he's upset. But Mitch prepares his blade and denies such things. Encred tries to enter the same state of concentration as Mitch, where he can only feel the blade, but he is once again defeated with a blade through the chest. Mitch notes that he lost pretty easily. Did he really think he would win with only those skills? As Encred slowly dies, he thinks that his attitude is all wrong. What he's trying to achieve cannot be intentional. He must be absorbed into the fight naturally. He repeats today, and he is defeated. He does it again and again. He will continue to do it until he has grasped the feeling. The 18th time, he can see the blade coming his way. The 28th time, he can enter a state of concentration at a moment's notice. And the 48th time, he reaches a revelation. When Ragna tries to teach him that feeling, Encred finally sees the blade for what it truly is, and he becomes lost in its beauty, allowing him to deflect Ragna's attack with ease. He asks how he was able to assimilate what he told him so easily, but Encred isn't even hearing him now. Pure concentration means completely controlling both body and sword. His power and technique have developed so much that he cannot compare them to his past self. Ragna asks where he's going, and Encred notes he's just going to meet the platoon commander. It's time for him to overcome today. When he reaches the ferry commander, she asks what he wants. So Encred reveals that he remembers seeing spells during their recon mission. The Aspen soldiers were calling a creepy old man the spellcaster. The ferry commander is intrigued and asks him to elaborate further. Encred told her everything that they might need to win this battle. So when the fog comes now, the soldiers are prepared to block the arrows, and Encred's team charges in without words. He has put his hope in the commander's competence, as he has a mission to overcome this next obstacle. Encred immediately says that he recognizes him. He wanted to fight him from the very beginning, and today, he shall defeat him no matter what. Encred lets out a powerful strike, but Mitch sidesteps and rushes in with a slash, which Encred expertly deflects. Mitch knows that he's in a precarious situation, and can barely block Encred's next strike, and they continue clashing blades until they arrive at a standstill. Mitch feels obligated to ask, was he hiding his skills all of this time? Encred notes that it appears to be so, making Mitch ask for his name, which Encred tells him. In that moment, Mitch deflects his blade and says that he will remember his name, but Encred notes that there won't be a need for that. He will make sure he always knows it. As Mitch raises his sword high into the air, Encred becomes concentrated on the blade, and combined with the fact that he has all of his weight on his right foot, he predicts that he will slash diagonally, and he's right. The techniques he has learned from all the todays, the battle experience he gained through these repetitions, it all culminates here. As Mitch strikes, Encred does the same, and they both nip each other's necks. But Encred doesn't stop and makes his slash go towards Mitch's neck, who can barely dodge. He was sure that he would kill him in a few movements, but he's actually struggling against this bastard, and that's something he will not accept. Since his flowing sword techniques are more suited for parrying, he needs to attack properly, so he will use the best technique he has. He hilts himself into the ground and rushes the blade from the bottom, which will create a huge arc. That's why this technique is called the wheel cut. Encred already knows of this ultimate technique. He has experienced it firsthand countless times, and he was always struck down because of it. But this time, he is ready and parries the attack perfectly. Mitch is shocked to say the least, even if his face does not show it. The Hurriers, which Mitch belongs to, are one of the three main houses that reign over the Aspen Kingdom, and House Hurrier represents brute force, meaning that they will recruit anyone who shows talent for the sword. Mitch was also recruited from a regional house, and after adopting the Hurrier name, he proved himself with his skills, and fought off 2 adult knights at the age of 15. He won against a champion swordsman at the age of 18, and by 22, he was the strongest champion of the entire city. He then went on to be among the top 3 best fighters in the Greyhounds, through sheer skill alone. Only few could ever match his talents, and even those didn't want to try their luck. As he saw others training, he wondered to himself, why do they do so until failure? Why must they swing a sword until their hands bleed? He did not see any point in training, as his entire body was pure skill, and this was the mistake that got him here. Without any way to swing his body in any way but backwards, Encred easily punctures his chest and pulls his blade out, making Mitch start to bleed heavily. He damns himself for underestimating him, and says that he's not as good as him when it comes to strength or sword technique, which Encred confirms. But yet, he was still the one who won. Mitch can't refute that, and in his last moments, he can only regret his past of complacency. Who knows what he would have become if he trained? The moment Encred's sword reaches his neck, Greyhound jumps in to save Mitch, who is still bleeding heavily. but he is swiftly escorted out of the battlefield by one of the men. Greyhound notes that he did not expect a single man to cause this much of a mess, but as punishment, he will not have an easy death. Encred already knew that, since he's surrounded by enemies, but he is also not deterred. This only means that breaking the flag and finding an exit is the next wall that he must overcome. Greyhound tells everyone to fire, and Encred is prepared for the worst. He charges in through the arrows as he cannot avoid all of the attacks, so he will take them while continuing to advance. Greyhound isn't there just for decoration, however, and strikes Encred, who can feel how heavy his strikes are just from this. So to win this fight, he will have to die numerous times, but the objective for now is to destroy the flag and get out of here. With that in mind, he throws a knife at the flag, as even if slightly damaged, the spell will stop working. Greyhound sees what he's trying to do and slashes at him, but Encred rolls away and throws another dagger, this time hitting it expertly. In the fog, the fairy commando holds her ground, yet her mind is set on the fact that she asked command for more troops, yet she didn't receive anything. This kingdom is as rotten as ever. They sent the weakest men to command the lines. At this rate, slowly, they will be wiped out. That's when the fog dissipates, allowing her to move more swiftly than ever and take care of the enemy with ease. She recognizes this as a chance to turn the tide of battle, so she rallies everyone to attack, which works, as they all scream and shout while charging. With the fog gone, they have a better chance, but who destroyed that spell? Perhaps it was the one who told her about it, Encred. All bloodied and spent, Encred knows that he messed up, as he thought that he would run into his team after the fog went, but he cannot spot a single friendly, and even he has a limit. Rem is taking care of hundreds of men, but he is actually aiming for the spellcaster, as he wants to have his head. At the same time, Ragna got completely lost, and is aiming his sword at one of the commanders, only now realizing the mistake he made. The enemies mock Encred, as he's trudging along like a dog, and he will die like one too. Just before one of them strikes him down, the puma from the grass fields attacks the soldier, and just as the enemy is about to unleash a flurry of arrows, it cuts all of their crossbows to make them useless. The puma seems adamant in protecting Encred, but he tells it to leave, as the man in front of them is quite special. Greyhound has had enough of this, and is ready to strike him down, but that's when Vengeance shows up, and tells Encred to rest easy, as he's about to show him what a real man looks like. He lunges at Greyhound, who immediately deflects his blade and throws him on his ass, making Vengeance fold and order his men to shoot at him. Greyhound isn't fazed at all by the arrows and charges forward, allowing the puma to charge in from behind with its claws bare. Greyhound is caught by surprise, but he manages to hit the beast with the hilt of his blade, rendering it unconscious. The next strike is aimed at Encred, who can still see the blade, but since he cannot parry his attack with the strength he has now, it means that he will have to use a technique Mitch liked, and let the blade flow. He does the exact same thing, which surprises Greyhound, as he recognizes Mitch's technique that he just used, and Encred is more ecstatic than ever. Vengeance surprisingly rushes in again, but Greyhound does not counterattack, as he sees the army of men coming in his direction. He reluctantly backs away, but not before telling Encred that he will not soon forget his dirty face, and promises to take him down one day. He orders his men to retreat, allowing Vengeance to focus on Encred's well-being and get him out of there. But Encred brings the puma along too, even if his strength is waning second by second. Vengeance orders everyone to retreat, and Encred slowly loses consciousness, the tiredness and bleeding catching up to him in the end. In his dreams, he sees the boatman once again. Did he accomplish his objective again? He is truly a persistent bastard, but what drives him so? In the end, even if in this state, Encred has survived another today. Encred slowly wakes up as the others around him talk about his state. Some wonder how he managed to do it. Others know that he went off without any warning, and one of them prays for his swift recovery. As Encred gets a feel of his hands, he feels something fuzzy, and when he looks, the puma who saved him is now cuddling with him. Rem asks if he's finally awake. They all thought he was going to bite the dust. Encred slowly gets up and asks what's going on, and Jackson gets up to hand him some water, while explaining that he lost quite a bit of blood. Crace goes on to say that thankfully, the medic healed him enough so that there won't be any lasting effects. The goddess of luck must truly be on his side. As Encred looks at the puma he just dropped a little water on, he notes that he must have passed out during their retreat out of the battlefield. Everyone slowly leaves since they saw their commander awake, and Encred is happy to see that he survived another day. Rem, however, does not leave, and stares at Encred, who thinks that he's interested in the puma, so he asks if he would like to pet him or something. Rem doesn't care about that beast. What he wants to know is how did he know that the fog was a spell? Encred is conflicted, as Rem will not believe him if he tells him about his ability. So must he really lie to him? He doesn't want to. Rem has been a faithful friend, so he would like to return that trust in kind. He explains that in the past, he was friends with a settler, and he suspected it was so based on what he heard from that guy. Encred thinks that this excuse is perfect, since he really did hear it from a settler, that being Rem. He gets up, as it's fine if he doesn't want to tell him, but he shouldn't get into spells that much. As he leaves, Encred questions him about what he was doing during the fight, with Rem telling him that he was going to have a chat with the bastard who set up the flags, but he really didn't like his face, so he sent his head flying. While Encred thinks of Rem doing that, Crace tries to bribe the puma with some beef jerky, but it's having none of it and it snaps at him. Encred tells him to be careful. This little guy might just rip him to shreds if pushed enough. Crace doesn't care, as he really wants that 10,000 krona. He heard from that Henry guy that because this beast has blue eyes, it's a lake puma, and they hold the energy of the land inside of them. Each of its claws is supposed to be worth about 10,000 krona, and they keep growing new ones. Encred is pretty amazed. A single bronze coin is worth 1 krona, so 10,000 must be like a gold coin, more than what he has paid, that's for sure. After he passed out, they dominated the battlefield, but the battle itself came to a standstill, and both sides chose to retreat. Since then, nobody has made a move. They are all recovering from their wounds after all. While his mind is racing, he wonders if the parry he did back then would succeed if he tried doing it again. Perhaps he will never know. Jackson comes around later and tells him to stop stretching. He will not heal if he keeps his muscles moving. Encred feels that he's not overdoing it, so he can move at least a little. Ragna agrees with Jackson. The most he can do now is stretch like that. He should get some sleep and recover faster. Rem comes around and bumps into Ragna, asking if he's trying to spread his laziness to their commander too. And by the way, standing in the walkway like that is a dumbass move. Ragna immediately goes to fetch his sword so that they can have a fight, which prompts Encred to ask something about it. He managed to actually use a technique he had never practiced before. He only saw. Is that a normal thing? Rem feels that it is. If he was using the heart of the beast, he could actually sense what the enemy was doing, so he would be able to understand how they swing their sword and how much strength to use. Ragna also agrees that it should be easier since he learned the basics. He also succeeded with single-point concentration, so he must have seen more than in the past. However, he actually got pretty lucky, as at his level, something like that will succeed after 100 real battles. Encred now understands. The day that has just passed wasn't a single day for him. It was hundreds of days of overwhelming struggle. He got stronger through his hard work and determination, not just through memorizing patterns as such. No matter how much talent he has, he can get stronger, and he will. While Ragna and Rem butt heads, Encred asks them both for a duel. Rem notes that most people call him a madman, but that title should be given to him, while Ragna asks how he hopes to duel in his condition. Suddenly, the ferry commander appears, who says that duels are not to be participated in while he's in such a bad condition. She also asks if he was the person who broke the spell. Encred knew that someone would come and ask him that question, but why the company chief commander? He says that it was indeed him. He saw it while on patrol and also knew a little about it from previous encounters. The ferry commander is surprised. There were 5 decoys. How did he find the real one? Encred notes that he just guessed, which makes the ferry commander stare at him for a bit, but she turns away and takes that as the truth. Encred asks if this is all she came to ask, but the ferry commander explains that she also came to see his face, as it seems that fate has brought them together. Encred has no clue what she's talking about, but Rem and Ragna think that they are together or something, with Ragna surprised that he has those types of skills. Encred tells them that it's not like that, but Crace also comes around and notes that he's the perfect guy to start a host bar with. He will make the terms favorable for him. Encred tells him to shut up, but he also wonders why she said that. She's their boss, so this is really uncomfortable. Crace also has some news for him. A squire from the Knight Order has arrived. Encred is surprised. Someone from the Scarlet Cloak Knight Order is here. The battalion he is a part of is named the Cypress Division, which was named after a knight, and that Cypress is a part of the Scarlet Cloak Knight Order. The knights are people who are extremely skilled, which is true even across the entire continent. That is why a Knight Order has a lot more people besides the main knights. They have squires, servants, and students. Once a squire has proved himself to his knight, they become a proto-knight, and far above that, there are the knights, who have surpassed their human limit. Squires do not fight often without their knight, so this squire is probably about to become a proto-knight. Suddenly, the bells ring, and everyone gets ready for battle. Crace thinks that they were probably waiting for this guy if they are heading to battle right now, and Rem tells Encred to get some rest. He really does need it. Encred is not bothered by his wounds. He wants to see that guy in action. He wants to compare himself to him. Rem sees the glow in his eyes, and tells him to come with if he wants to see him so much. It's not like they are going to do much anyway. Everyone gets lined up for battle shortly afterwards, but Encred is most excited. He will finally see a small piece of his dream. He can finally see what it takes to become a knight. The squire walks alone to their enemies, who immediately get into position to fire their arrows at him, but he does not flinch even once, and walks steadfast. The enemy commander tells them to fire, making hundreds if not thousands of arrows fly towards the squire, who waits until they are close enough. After that, he crouches down and gathers wind at his feet, which Ragna recognizes as determination. After charging enough, the squire sprints through the arrows and arrives directly at the enemy's front line. It's filled with shields and spears, but the squire is not stopped. As with one strike, he takes out that entire front line and sends his enemies flying. Encred is astounded, but also frightened. Even the commander doesn't know what to say, but he has nothing to say, as the squire starts cleaving through them left and right without mercy. Everyone starts to retreat at the sight. They will not needlessly sacrifice their lives, but the commander tells them to hold the line before his head gets chopped off cleanly. As the squire stands on the head of the commander's horse, everyone has different opinions about him. Rem is not surprised by how skilled he is. They are called war specialists for a reason, right? Ragna feels that he should be able to at least hold the line against him, and Jackson notices that the enemy had at least 5 chances to stop his advance. The enemy commander was a fool. Krace is only glad that this will be over without them needing to do much, but Encred starts to ponder heavily. Is he using the righteous sword? But that's not it. It has elements of the heavy and swift sword in it too. The righteous sword is a just and intricate technique that lures the opponent into the user's moves. The heavy sword is, like the name suggests, a heavy sword technique. It uses strength to cut through everything and dominate no matter what. The confounding sword is the most confusing technique, as it tricks the opponent and allows easy ambushes. The Valen sword is a subsidiary of this technique. The swift sword is the fastest sword technique. It overwhelms the opponent with sheer speed. The flowing sword is a soft and gentle technique. It parries the opponent's attacks and retaliation in kind. Encred can see both heavy and swift swords in that squire. They are both vying for control. He breathes in and regathers his thoughts. Even if different in character, all techniques started from a single source. If one is to understand the resemblance between all 5 techniques and wield the sword like it is a living, breathing object, perhaps then they will be able to do this too. He closes his eyes as the army charges in, with Rem and Ragna noticing that their squad leader is meditating. Rem smiles and tells them that the squad leader is about to overcome something, so they will allow nobody to disturb him. Encred knows that nothing changed, despite his understanding. Understanding is nothing. It is only a wall, something that exists only to show how much he has to climb. Soldiers fly past him into battle, but Encred does not move. Instead, he climbs the obstacle inside of his mind, and he will do it to the very top. As the screaming and wailing of the fight rages on, Encred continues to climb. As their soldiers continue to push the enemy, Encred continues to climb. As the soldiers scream out in victory, Encred has finished his climb. He knows that this war is coming to an end, so the following seasons will be quite busy. In the Principality of Aspen, which is controlled by the 3 main families, Aspen, the sovereign, damns the empire, as they broke the gentleman's agreement to not bring in any knights. Grey Wolf, who is actually named Hurrier the Almighty, and Atkins, the administrator, are also present. Atkins explains that they used the frog general they sent out as an excuse, and since the frogs do require a knightly response, they have no excuse either. Aspen damns that bastard of a frog who did as he pleased, but Atkins notes that it was to be expected. Frogs generally do what they want, no matter their excuse or motive. However, this would have not happened if the spell they wasted resources on had succeeded. Aspen becomes enraged at the Greyhounds. They must pay for this insubordination. Hurrier knows that this will not end well for them at all. After such a lengthy war, the Aspen forces headed back, and so did Encred and his team. They all went to Border Guard, which is the kingdom's remote fortress city. Because it's close to Aspen, this place is heavily militarized, with 1 in 5 people being a soldier. A ceremony is held, praising everyone for their will and determination, which has brought them this victory. They will also reward the common soldiers who have proven themselves most useful, be it on the battlefield or out. The first one to be called out is Encred, as he destroyed that foul spell of the Aspens, so he shall be rewarded. Everyone starts mocking him as he climbs the podium. They call him weak, and think that he did something with the commander to get this reward. Suddenly, someone from behind the trash talkers tells them to shut up, with another familiar face telling them to not talk down to that person. To them, Encred is much more than that. He is a true man. Encred receives quite a hefty sum of cash, which makes Krace immediately ask what he's going to do with it. Perhaps he will spend it on drinks, or women, or perhaps both. Encred notes that he wants a good store, more specifically, the best blacksmith in the entire city. Krace walks with him all the way to the smithy, wondering how he can spend all that money on a damn sword. If he doesn't like the standard issue one, he can just pick one out from the battlefield and be done with it. He does that too, and they work fine. Encred does not mind him. To become a knight, he needs to prove himself. More specifically, he must prove his skills. He is going to take the soldier promotion exam, as it's about time he ditches the life of a lowly foot soldier. Krace thought he wasn't interested in things like promotions, but Encrid feels that he can't stay in one place forever. Crace understands, but they must get stuff set up first. Norilla has a soldier ranking system in order to increase morale, with those stronger than the scale being considered special grades. A person is also treated differently based on their rank. To be promoted, one must have a duel with 3 of the soldiers in the rank that he is after, and win. For the soldiers that are just spectating, this is just a fun sport involving betting, which naturally Crace is the expert of, and incentivizes everyone to come and bet. The first soldier Encrid has to face is Arrogant. What is a low-rank scum like him trying to achieve by going for medium rank? He won an award based on the squad's actions, and now he thinks he's some hotshot. Encrid knows this guy. Even if arrogant, he is skilled and hails from a famous mercenary group. The betting box Crace has is filled with bets on the other side, while there is only a single bronze coin on Encrid's side, prompting the gamblers to wonder who put that coin there. Crace notes that they won't know until the results come in, so they should sit down as the match is starting. Encrid only got stronger by dying over and over, but in this fight, there is no risk of death, so he only has one shot. He steels himself. He will look ahead and not lose focus, which is a pathetic skill, but it's the limit of his hard work. He knows that in the past, he wouldn't have stood a chance against someone like this, but he will not be conceited either. He will fight like his life is on the line. The arrogant full charge in with his sword aimed high. Encrid thinking that he will try to do the parry he learned in the previous battle. Perhaps he can win if he does it. Surprisingly enough, however, Encrid blows the sword out of the arrogant bastard's hands away in a single stroke, who is more scared about his fingers. Encrid doesn't know what to say, so he just ends the fight by hitting the bastard with the butt of his sword. He wonders why this guy is so weak, and a gambler is mad at Crace, as he probably was the one who bet on his commander, right? Because he knew how strong he was? Crace actually is shocked too. He only put that bronze coin in there because he took pity on him. Encrid wonders if that guy just let his guard down, but even if he did, the duel ended too quickly. He shouldn't be so weak if he's a medium rank. He doesn't have time to think about that, as his next opponent arrives, who tells him to not get cocky just because he won one duel. Encrid knows this guy too. He is heavy infantry, the strongest in their battalion. The heavy soldier starts by trying to distract Encrid by waving the tip of his spear around, but then he only thrusts forward, allowing Encrid to just cut the tip of his spear, rendering it useless. He thinks that this is just a trick. This guy must have something else lined up. Judging by his face, however, it seems that this really is just it. Encrid kicks him in the gut, ending another fight. Everyone is shocked that he won 2 fights in a row, and Crace calls forward the next challenger. Who wants to duel him? Nobody wants to budge. Not even those who trash talk to him. Andrew thinks that he can win since he trained with Mac every night since they last met, but Mac tells him to not go, as he's gotten too strong. Not even he has a chance to beat him. With that information, Andrew sits down and observes the situation. Suddenly, someone pushes the main trash talk to go. That's someone being Rem, who has heard everything he said up until now. To prove he's not scared, the trash talker agrees to go, even though he's sweating bullets. Encrid only felt struggle up until now, so that is why he did not notice. That stabbing bastard in the first today he suffered through, and the assassin in the next one. Combined with Mitch Hurrier, and even the squad members he trains with daily, he just had it rough until now. He knows that his old teacher told him to not underestimate his opponent, which he felt was irrelevant to him, as he never thought there would be a time when he could look down on someone. The trash talker asks what's with his face, but Encrid is only happy. He has become strong enough to dominate his opponent. He charges in with his sword, hitting heavily. In Norilla, strength is the most respected thing, so using this bastard, he will prove to everyone he is strong. He breaks his sword after a few hits, and then stops before slashing him apart, proving himself for good. The trash talker pissed himself too, and now everyone recognizes Encrid as the Spellbreaker. He really destroyed that flag. Suddenly, Andrew gets up and starts chanting Spellbreaker, while also forcing the others to do it. The eyes that were looking down upon him now admire his strength, as they all chant his title, the Spellbreaker. Crace congratulates him, as now he's medium rank, but Encrid feels it's too early for any celebration. He has to get to high rank first. Crace is surprised that he's still going to climb, and that's when someone stands up, noting how interesting he is. The others around him notice the eagle patch on his clothes. He's a border guard, the ones directly serving the crown. He is called the Border Butcher, and he earned that title too. He approaches Encrid and notes that he would like to duel him too, just a friendly one, nothing too special. Thank you for watching. See you next time.